everybody, and welcome to The Wizard and the Bruiser. I'm the Wizard, Holden McNeely.
And I'm the Bruiser, Jake Young. And my favorite part of the show is how we always keep that consistent.
Go, 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 go! That's the knowledge crow telling you that it's The Wizard and the Bruiser half hour to an hour.
Learning awaits, caw.
Oh, no. I need a rune in order to get the crow to open up to me. Tell me the secrets of the treasures. But today, we're talking about The Simpsons.
Oh, God. You know, guys, TV is the best. Sweet, warm mother box. Third parent. The glowing womb, as I used to call it.
So I would say, yes, my box was a mother box. Indeed, Jake, I was raised by the TV in so many ways. And a lot of my interactions with my family was watching TV together, really not speaking to each other, but sitting in the dark and laughing along with each other to a TV show. That was our way to bond.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, though, is that Simpsons came along at such a specific point. This was the height of TV in terms of market saturation. It was ubiquitous. It was before VCRs. It was before TiVos. I guess there were VCRs. You know what I mean?
We had VCRs back then, yes.
But when a show aired,
DVD fucking players.
When a show aired, that was it. That was, you had to catch stuff, and the ratings back then were in millions. Like they measured percentage of the U.S. population watching a show at any given time, and like a mediocre show is still like 3 million people back then.
Now let me ask you this: did you catch? Because I brought this whole bonding with my family thing up because I want to ask you first: did you catch the OG first episode Christmas special when it aired for the first time, like I did with my father?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not.
You weren't on board yet. You had to get moved into it.
I think somewhere in the middle of the first season is when it started to when I started watching it, because I wasn't cool enough, I guess. My parents weren't like, "Hey, you want to watch this Tracy Ullman show spinoff?" Which poor Tracy Ullman,
she sued.
A footnote to history, though.
Yeah.
I watched a few episodes in preparation to this. It's an okay sketch show.
Yeah.
It's an okay sketch show which had these interstitial cartoons of this weird animated family that was it's not the Simpsons you recognize. None of the voices are the same.
Well, do you know that the reason why they look so shitty in the cartoon is because Matt Groening just scribbled out some sketches to give to the animators, thinking they would
clean it up,
use those for their animations. Instead, they just drew directly over the scribblings, and that's why you have what you have for those really crude early episodes or shorts on the Tracy Ullman show.
I guess we'll get into history for a second.
Sure.
But it was a worldwide phenomenon.
It was huge. I remember my dad and I, it was like this big deal. I don't know why it was such a big deal, but we sat down, we watched the Christmas special, and then they kept re-airing it, and we kept, every time it was on TV, it was like, Holden, come down, it's on again. And I'd run downstairs and watch the show, and it was like this it turned into a real obsession for me, and later with my friends. I remember every day we were quoting the episodes at lunch. Every day, that was what we would do. We just quote The Simpsons, and I had those Simpsons encyclopedias that had all the little tidbits and info. And I wish I still had those. It would have been useful for this fucking episode, but they got destroyed in college when I was using them for doobie papers or something. I don't know what.
It's almost like The Simpsons was the final form of the TV show. I swear to God, because it's very intertextual. It's very meta. It is a TV show made directly in response to sitcoms, which were the dominant form. Like before The Simpsons, it was The Cosby Show, Family Matters, Full House, Cheers. All the way back to Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver. Groening, one format.
Groening said he wanted to offer the audience an alternative to what he called the mainstream trash that they were watching.
Right. Okay, so let's get into the personalities involved.
For sure.
Every episode of The Simpsons, after the main credit sequence, there is 3 names. It's The Simpsons, developed by Matt Groening, James L. Brooks, Sam Simon.
Yes.
And
those are the three for sure.
And each one of them is super important to what made that show amazing.
Absolutely. And I think it all kind of starts with Matt Groening, born on February 15th, 1954 in Portland, Oregon, the middle of 5 children. He had 2 younger sisters named Lisa and Maggie, older sister named Patty, and an older brother named Mark. What happened to Mark? Mark didn't get any love in the show.
Mark is the luckiest one.
His mother, Margaret Ruth, i.e. Marge, was a teacher, and the father, Homer Groening, was a filmmaker, advertiser, writer, and cartoonist.
For a long time, his bread and butter was 60s surf films, like real eeny-weeny polka dot bikini surfs up movies. And I found footage, and there it is, like... Aloha a Go-Go, directed by Homer Groening. And it's such... seeing those 2 words are just so bizarre in real life.
Amazing.
And Groening was, he grew up in the 60s, was part of the counterculture.
Went to the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, what he described as a hippie college. There were no grades or required classes, and he said it attracted every weirdo from the Northwest.
So he's this weirdo, a creative kid. He's meeting up with a bunch of burgeoning talent from the alt comic scene, including Charles Burns, who did Black Hole, which is an amazing book. Linda Barry, who is this this proto alt cartoonist that's influenced generations after her. And Groening is there. He's hanging out. He's working on the school paper. And when he graduates, full of piss and vinegar and love and creativity and hippie juice, he moves to L.A.
Ugh, hippie juice.
It's like patchouli and drippings.
Bong water.
It's a weird mix of bong water, mucus, and just hash oil.
Protest sweat. Just that singular kind of sweat you get from standing outside all day
it's
screaming
called
at strangers.
justice.
Blocking their way. They're just trying to get through onto the campus. They're just trying to get on the campus and you're blocking their way. It's not right.
I didn't know my co-host liked war so much. But he moves to LA to make his dreams come true, to be part of the TV dream that he grew up with. And surprise, surprise, he immediately becomes incredibly depressed and bitter.
Oh, working so many different odd jobs, washing dishes at a nursing home. He was even a landscaping in a sewage treatment plant. It was a nightmare. And he did eventually end up working at a record store called Licorice Pizza, which took me a second, but then I kind of got it.
LP.
A record looks like LP. I thought it was because it looks like a pizza made out of licorice.
It also looks like that.
But yes, he becomes very depressed and starts working on his own cartoon series about his experiences in LA being depressed, and it's called Life in Hell.
And it's kind of this. Again, you have to understand that this was a subversive thing back in the day. The alt weeklies were still a huge part of counterculture at the time. Ask your parents, but there used to be free newspapers about how you're cool instead of those boring newspapers you have to pay for. And they'd have these anti-establishment black and white comics.
And for him, eventually he was able to get published in one magazine called Wet Magazine, which sounds real gross. I was trying to kind of figure out what the vibe of it was. It looks like it was a lot of photography and imagery and stuff like that. And I got disturbed quickly, so I turned away from it.
And it also evokes the feeling of a recent basement flood.
Yeah, exactly. And this happened in 1978. And then he started working at the Los Angeles Reader, and he got a regular Life in Hell slot on the Reader. He was working there doing all types of things. He was literally delivering papers and editing, and all jack of all trades at this paper. Showed the editor in chief his Life in Hell comic strips, and he said, you know what? He gave him a regular slot in the magazine.
And the Life in Hell comics are they use these Binky the Rabbit, and
there's the rabbit. There's the two little gay couple with the fedoras. I had the Big Book of Hell and the Huge Book of Hell and some of the other works that compilation works. I loved those things. I thought they were so great.
But it's these cartoonish characters, these bug-eyed characters with a very bleak, depressing tone. It's it's an angry strip. It's a depressed strip. It's an existentially kind of dour but funny strip.
It is not. I mean, there are elements of The Simpsons that we know in it, but it is not. It ain't your daddy's. Actually, it is your daddy's Simpsons because it came before The Simpsons.
So while Matt Groening is writing these very, very personal comics about how much LA is making him miserable, James L. Brooks is working with the newly launched Fox network.
Yes. After getting out of television for quite a while, he had a claim to fame early on. He worked on tons of, co-created a little-known show called The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Room 222, and Taxi.
So these are like big TV shows at the time. These are, it feels weird to say. I have no person hearing my dad talk about the Mary Tyler Moore Show is like if you wanted to talk to your friend about The Wire. There is a reverence there.
Totally. And he got out of TV for a while though, and made another little-known film. Wrote, directed, produced Terms of Endearment, and won Oscars for all of the things that he did on that movie. Yeah, he won all of it. He swept it. It's crazy.
So he's not only a commercial success, he's also a writer that other writers look up to, with a focus on character, with a focus on suffering. He grew up in a very broken household. His father was an alcoholic that basically abandoned his family. He talks about in interviews how he would lie awake at night knowing for certain that whether or not his dad chose to send any child support that week would be the difference between whether or not he ate that night or that week. He found out after the fact that he was Jewish. His father told him he was Irish and then just left.
I love it. That's one of those kooky broken home stories that you just only get from, like, that's like sounds like part of the monologue that what's his name does in Austin Powers, Dr. Evil or whatever, like, from his like horrible like past that led to him becoming like an evil villain.
So he's this incredibly heartfelt writer, this incredibly transformative creative force within show business that proves that heart and suffering and complexity is key to characters, and that's why his TV shows were above and beyond the pale of My Mother the Car and Father Knows Best.
And another cool little fact later on in the career, obviously, he mentored a very young Wes Anderson on Bottle Rocket.
Yeah. Most things including The Simpsons, adds to this legend of James L. Brooks.
Things.
He was also, though, incredibly volatile. He was very aggressive legally. He was a mogul. Yeah. In The Simpsons, whenever they make references to James L. Brooks, they will literally portray a fat guy with like a cigar and a top hat, kind of making fun of him because he's the money guy.
Yeah.
Richard Sakai, who is a name that appears also a lot in Simpsons early credits and stuff, was his personal enforcer that he would send down to the writing staff and like told him what to change and what not to change. Like, they feared this guy, and he was just the middleman between the writing staff and the Fox executives.
Right. And the way, okay, so to back it up a little bit too, before The Simpsons was born, we kind of returned to a subject we sort of started with, but James L. Brooks actually he even quoted saying, like, I never thought I would end up back in television. It was a situation where he was kind of mentoring Tracy Ullman with her show, but she couldn't find a producer, so he ended up kind of getting signed onto the project through those means. He saw Life in Hell, he really liked it, and he was thinking about getting some sort of kind of animated bumpers. Originally, he wanted
Peter
it to
Bogdanovich's wife gave him a comic of full, like, drawn, like an original, comic board of a Life in Hell strip. And that's like introduced him to Matt Groening's work.
Super cool.
So, and during a meeting where they were trying to figure out a problem with the sketch show, I don't know if you know this about sketches.
Tell me some things about.
I'm going to tell you, Holden McNeely, something about sketch comedy. The transitions are hard.
The transitions are always notoriously hard. Now, I'm in a sketch comedy group called Murder Fist. Our little way to sneak around that was sort of just to dance around and scream like maniacs until the next sketch started. But a lot of sketch shows that you see, you're normally just kind of sitting in the dark, listening to some sort of top 40s music hit or something really ironic, which I love to hear. Who Let the Dogs Out for 3 minutes while I watch people move furniture around before the next sketch starts. And then you have to sort of build all that momentum that you built up in the last sketch, which is lost in those 3 minutes. You have to work your ass off yet again and start all the way over again and build that momentum up again, unless you can find a way to kind of connect all the bits.
And so the solution they came up with for the Tracy Ullman show was, what if instead, in order to let people know that a sketch has ended and a new sketch is beginning, why don't we show these little cartoon segments written and animated and storyboarded by Matt Groening and Gabor Schupo of Klasky Schupo fame. Voiced by some of the actors from the sketch show, but not all of the actors from the sketch show, that has no involvement with the woman whose name is on the sketch show.
Yeah.
What if we just aired that mini TV show in the middle of the other show?
Right.
And I'm watching the old Tracy Ullman shows. They're really out of place and weird. The original Simpsons interstitials make no sense.
Weirdly paced. They're not fun. I mean, that's subjective, but they're not funny. They're very odd.
It's everyone's Lisa's an asshole. Maggie's an asshole. Homer's an asshole. Marge is just quiet and scared and beaten in the corner. Not physically beaten, just emotionally.
Just emotionally beaten. The gap between like the gap between the Tracy Ullman show shorts and the show getting picked up. That's what I don't understand. The moments in between where I guess James L. Brooks just said, "This is going to be great. Let's do this," because I don't know how else it would have gotten picked up, because it's not like you see it in those shorts. You don't. I mean, me personally, I don't see it.
The fact is, they were an animated TV family. Like, the original subversive joke of The Simpsons is, instead of the Jetsons, instead of the Flintstones, instead of these like fantastical get along families with the bedraggled husband and like the perfect kids, it's The Simpsons, a bunch of schmucks that like hate each other.
A real ass family.
And like, instead of like getting bonked on the head, like Bart like falls off a table and is like bleeding a little. Like, I get where the subversion of expectations makes it funny, and the character designs are, even in that crude form, that nothing else looked like them. The yellow, the spikes, like all of it looks way different than anything out there.
And that's actually the idea for that was that if you made them, he wanted to make them yellow so that if you're flipping channels and your eye flashes that yellow, you'll know it's The Simpsons.
Here's the thing where we're going to get into this, but like, I read another source that said it was like a weird like assistant art director in Klasky Schupo Studios that was like, I don't know, I make yellow background purple is so yellow matches, no, like. There's so many stories because this was such a collaborative effort with so many individual moving pieces.
Totally.
But it's always Matt Groening's name on the merchandise.
And
hold on.
What's crazy about the Inception too, before we even get into, apparently he wanted, for the Tracy Ullman show, he wanted Life in Hell to be the animated bumpers.
Yeah.
And apparently in the lobby of James L. Brooks's office, he very quickly...
Groening.
Yeah, Groening very quickly threw together a pitch based off of his family. He just very fast, he threw the names down. You know, it was all his family names. He didn't want to use his own name, though, for the character that would represent him, which was Bart. So he went with Bart, which was an anagram of brat.
Yeah, this is a level of savviness that, like, Groening is kind of revealed. It's kind of weird whenever, like, in the hippy-dippy alt circle, the guy who makes it turns out was a fucking assassin all along. Because, like, he knew that if this animated short kind of flopped, he wouldn't be able to sell his Life in Hell books anymore because they wouldn't belong to him anymore.
Yep. He in the contract, his rights would have been rescinded to the property. So he wanted to maintain those.
So.
Crazy. But also that he would have to sort of pull it together in a lobby. I hope that's true, because that's insane. I mean, as a person who's pitched before,
you agonize over it.
You slave over it. You go crazy. You spend out. You're like rewording every little intricate moment of the pitch, or just trying to figure out every in and out. It's like a chess game. You always want to be thinking at like two moves ahead. You know, like of what they're going to ask for, what they might, and just coming up with it on the fly like that is.
Which, if you've ever seen Matt Groening draw, he's not a good artist.
No.
So that had to be some real shitty sketches.
Yeah, well, we saw the shitty sketches in the Tracy Ullman show.
People did like the Simpsons cartoons. I remember when I watched Mad TV when I was a kid. I hated the sketches, but I liked the Spy vs. Spy cartoons. They go to Barry Diller, who is technically my boss because I work for IAC right now. And James L. Brooks is like, hey, I think we got a thing with the Simpsons things. Give us a couple $1 million. This will make you stand out from the crowd. Fox was still struggling. Fox wasn't in, like, they were only in 4/5 of households still. after so many years.
That's right. They were really kind of an underdog television network back then. They really were. They were sort of like kind of laughed at by the other networks, and a lot. There were always like jabs at Fox and stuff too. And in 1989, The Simpsons, of course, was adapted to a half-hour series on Fox. And what I love about it,
the last name, Sam Simon.
Yes.
Was a writer that worked closely with James L. Brooks. He worked on Taxi. He was a TV guy.
He was Brooks's guy. Brooks brought him on, and him and Groening would actually soon come at odds with each other, right? A lot of times.
They just because here's the thing is Groening brought the attitude, brought the anti-establishment like subversive bits. James L. Brooks brought the heart, brought the brought the classic showbiz, like they have to be a family, they have to love each other, they have to, all those like na 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 moments you remember from The Simpsons. That's James L. Brooks' influence. But the fucking jokes, the fact that this was the funniest, sharpest show that worked on so many levels is because Sam Simon was just brought in the funniest people he could find. He thought this thing he would openly say, guys, don't worry, we only got 12 episodes, go nuts. And so he brought in all these writers, this famous like kind of menagerie of white Harvard educated guys, like Conan O'Brien, Al Jean, Mike Reese, all these people were because of Sam Simon's influence. So you needed all three of these dudes specifically at this moment to make The Simpsons what it was.
Well, and the thing that I highlighted, the thing that I feel like is the most important move done, and it was done by Brooks, he negotiated a provision in the contract that prevented Fox from interfering with the show's content, and I think that is what makes The Simpsons so fucking great.
You mentioned the Christmas special.
Yes, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire first premiered December 17th, 1989. I was there. I watched it.
Do you know why it was a Christmas special?
Why was it a Christmas special?
Because the Simpsons
came out in December.
The Simpsons production was fraught with troubles, with challenges. Like Matt Groening's animation style would not work for primetime. You couldn't teach a Korean animator to like fit any of nothing was on model those first few years. The actual workflow hadn't been established yet. James L. Brooks and all the other writers were TV guys. They didn't know how to write for animation yet. Even the sound mixing was weird. They were so unprepared to actually make this endeavor that when the first episode came in, it was actually the one with the psycho babysitter. The first episode ever completed.
Yes.
Like, they all the deals were made, all the writers were hired, everyone was pulling their hair out trying to figure out what happens, and they sent it to Korea to finish it up, and it came back, and there was this is oral history, like everyone crammed into the screening room, shoulder to shoulder, people sitting on the floor to see what was this thing we all believed in. What Gracie Films, James L. Brooks, Matt Groening, everyone was there, and it was awful. The sound issues were off. Voice lip syncing was off. There were weird takes that weren't supposed to be used. Individual transitions didn't work. Jokes landed flat. And famously, like fucking Hitler downfall style, James L. Brooks asked the room to be cleared except for key staff members and fucking laid into them. Like everyone thought they were doomed.
Right.
But then another episode came in and the animation was like a little bit better. And another episode came in and it came out even better. And the first episode that like kind of like that it worked was Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. So they decided to put that out first as a Christmas special.
Because the true season didn't start till like 3 months later. I think it was in March, I believe, of 90. I think, something like that. So, because I remember there being a long waiting period. Like, I was so excited for the actual season to start, And I remember having to wait. And it's kind of funny, though, because that waiting and that anticipation made it all the much sweeter. Like, when it finally came, it was almost a PR move that wasn't planned on, It's pretty amazing.
The show comes out. It's a hit. all of a sudden, everybody's fucking rich. Knives are out. People are butting heads. People who used to work on Tracy Ullman are like, hey, isn't this technically a spinoff of our show? And James L. Brooks is like, ha, 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 funny. Our friendship is dead.
And Tracy Ullman took it to court and lost.
She was acting in a movie being directed by James L. Brooks while the lawsuit was going on. Nobody expected, like, do you realize how fucking crazy it is for Matt Groening to be a fucking alternative cartoonist? To then become the god of a multi-billion-dollar merchandising.
And he said himself, like, no one expected it to be a hit.
Nobody cartoonist in the world will ever get a deal as sweet as Matt Groening ever did.
Yeah.
There is, like, right now, I'm sure Pendleton Ward is, like, being like, hey, guys, could I have 5 cents for my Adventure Time? And Cartoon Network's like, get back in the hole, fatty. Every single time we get into one of these things, we talk about, like, oh my God, why are these things so popular? And every single time it basically boils down to the right magical people met each other at the right magical fucking moment.
And they just so happened to negotiate a situation where they got to do what they wanted to do, how they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
You know? And they, every single time, they never expect it to be a big thing. And then it just becomes this crazy ass thing. You know?
There's oh God, it was so embarrassing in like the years immediately afterwards where everyone else was trying to do an animated show.
Oh yeah.
Family Dog, Capital Critters.
Yeah. I mean,
Jackie Bison. Look that one up, idiots. Jackie Bison.
It's still kind of happening. I mean, it's still like, you know, they really did spawn that primetime animated show. And what's funny, too, is, I mean, really you can look back to, like, the Flintstones was the Simpsons of its time, which is kind of bonkers to think that that was like an adult TV show for adults. But Simpsons really did it, you know? I remember after that came, and I love too that The Simpsons was a dirty show, and some families wouldn't let their kids watch The Simpsons, and it was such a big deal, and Bart was such a big deal. The fact, well, I think it was mainly the fact that, like, you have Homer, a father, choking his own child.
Nobody cared about that at the time. Nobody cared about that.
I remember that being kind of a thing. That Bart was a bad kid, and that he would talk back to his parents and stuff, and like that was a big deal.
Underachiever and proud of it. That made people weird. No, it was the fact that Bart sassed back to authority and was the hero.
So one of my favorite jokes was, this is seasons later, but Bart's like, they're trying to figure out how to save money because the family's in financial troubles, and Bart's like, I'm going to take up smoking and then quit it to save his money. He's like, good son. That's the hardest thing you'll ever have to do.
Have $5.
$5.
That's the other thing I wanted to get. The reason I actually wanted to do this topic is it was revolutionary at the time for a TV show to actually offer a sympathetic view of childhood as it actually is. Like, Charlie Brown kind of hit on that kind of isolation, just being a fuck up.
Yeah.
Just being a fuck up. Like, no other TV show. The Olsen twins were shitty actors. Like, my life wasn't like Urkel. My life wasn't like Bewitched. My life wasn't. But like Bart Simpson struggled to get a D-.
Yeah.
Like, Bart Simpson had bullies. Bart Simpson wanted a toy that his family couldn't get him. Like.
Yeah. And Lisa was surrounded by a bunch of idiots and couldn't do anything about it, you know? I connected to that as well, right? It's like you had a little bit of Bart and a little bit of Lisa going on at the same time, right? I mean, there was sort of that whole combination of with the childhood stuff. And even Maggie rolls her eyes at points.
I wish I could tell my principal to eat my shorts.
Right? And don't have a count. Oh, man. And the whole Bart Simpson
sasses God
craze.
in an early episode.
I remember in the summer, I went to like every surf shop with my brother under the moon because he was looking for a very specific Bart Simpson dunking a basketball as Michael Jordan.
Oh, it was that bootleg. That a black Bart Simpson?
Yeah, it was like a black Bart. It was like
Air
ridiculous.
Bart.
I remember like just
Rasta Bart.
The craze, man, was and it's so funny too. And we can get, you know, I think there's more Simpsons episodes in our future.
Yeah.
But just to see the shift between the sort of Bart Simpson craze, which slowly slid into a total just Homer-dominated show, what was huge. So I guess as we kind of like close out, do you want to talk about maybe some of our favorite Simpsons moments? Or
yeah, sure. That's so. I mean, I'm a grown-ass man, and I'll still like just go into quotes versus quotes on this shit.
Absolutely, right.
One of my favorites of all time is the dumbest thing. It's literally just one of the many jokes about Springfield Elementary being an underfunded public school. And it's just the specific shot is them trying to thin out the meatloaf with gym mats. And Lunch Lady Doris feeding like just one of those blue gym mats into a meat grinder and just looking very concerned and just goes, "There's very little meat in these gym mats." Which as a kid, like all those absurdist one-liners always like got me.
My favorite episode, and I have to admit, okay, my favorite episode is Lemon of Troy. The stealing the Shelbyville stealing the lemon tree from Springfield. My high school band that I was in, his name was Lemon of Troy.
Oh.
After our favorite Simpsons episode. That's how much we loved the show.
Shake harder, boy.
Shake harder, boy. And my favorite joke from that, I wrote it down. It's no use. I'm never going to find that tree. This whole raid was as useless as that yellow lemon-shaped rock over there. Wait a second. There's a lemon behind that rock. And then it shows the space. There really was a lemon-shaped rock, but then there was actually a lemon. It's so ridiculous.
It's the dumber jokes that stick with you.
Oh, totally. The other one from that episode, when they're looking at the different Roman numeral doors. Rocky 5 plus Rocky 2 equals Rocky 7. Adrian's Revenge.
I think. Wait, wasn't Apollo technically Rocky 7?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Apollo is. So we have like
or Creed. I'm sorry, Creed.
Or Creed rather. Yeah.
Okay, a really dumb thing. I love like anytime they went into old timey time stuff. Anytime like Mr. Burns talks about a male via aerogyro or anything like that. My favorite old guy moment probably. Just Grandpa Simpson in Strike Buster get up with a bunch of old men being like, "Well, we can't bust heads like we used to. Now we just tell long stories that don't go anywhere. Like the time I caught the trolley to Shelbyville. Yeah. No, back then the trolley cost a quarter. The key line. The important thing is I was wearing an onion on my belt, which was the style at the time.
Yeah, totally.
Back then you couldn't get white onions because of the war, so we had to use those big yellow ones. Just fucking that great.
My favorite Treehouse of Horror of all time would definitely have to be the Shinning / time traveling toaster episode. I wish I hadn't sat on that fish. The no beer and no TV makeover something. Go crazy. Don't mind if I do. Woo, woo, woo. It just
Lisa the Vegetarian had two great ones I love. The Homer's BBBQ. The extra B stands for BYOBB. What's that B stand for? That's a typo. And Mr. Burns and Smithers looking out in like that big office window he has behind his chair, just staring at the sky, just going, "Oh, Smithers, I think I'll donate $1 million to the local orphanage. When pigs fly." And they both start laughing, and then just the pig flying through the sky goes by. And Smithers just goes, "Shall I write the check, sir?" And just so casually, Mr. Burns unfazed is like, "No, I'd still prefer not."
One of the most brilliant, joke-filled, I think maybe, just from a writing standpoint, it's just so incredible. It's 22 short films about Springfield in the 7th season. It has just joke for joke. I think it may have the most jokes packed into a single episode. There's so many. It's hard to name them all. One of them is, of course, Principal Skinner and Superintendent Chalmers when Skinner's kitchen catches on fire and Superintendent Chalmers asks why, and he says, "It's the Northern Lights. It's Aurora Borealis. Aurora Borealis. At this time of year, at this part of the world, located specifically in your kitchen." Yep. What, can I see it? No, I'm sorry, you can't.
This was actually an important joke for me when I was a kid because I grew up in a moderate, acceptably religious household. Was when Homer loves Flanders. There was a moment where throughout the show there would be this kind of sky perspective looking down on Homer where he would like yell at God being like, "Why have you forsaken me? Like, Lord, please make this," like the whole episode. And then they just stay on that shot, and then Marge walks in, also looks up towards the camera with a broom and just goes like, "Homer, for the last time, that's not God, that's just a waffle Bart threw up there." And she hits the camera with a broom and a waffle falls into Homer's hand, and he just stands there looking at this waffle with reverence. And then the next line is just, "I know I shouldn't eat thee, O Lord." Sacrilegious. And that was like a very important, like, transgressive anti-religion joke that I remember.
Itchy and Scratchy Land, because I saw actually on your notepad the joke written down. My son is also named Bort, which is one of the greatest moments
and
ever.
then the callback at the command center.
Yeah,
Like,
Bort.
we are out of Bort license plates. I repeat, we are out of Bort license plates.
Welcome to Itchy and Scratchy Land, where nothing can possibly go wrong. Possibly go wrong. That's the first thing that's ever got wrong. It's so good. And then I wrote down all the some of my favorite song moments. See My Vest, made from real gorilla chest, like my loafers.
I hate every chimp I see from chimpanzee to chimpanzee.
You'll never make a monkey out of me.
God. Okay. Well, we literally took all this time just to get to the first episode of The Simpsons. We're going to have to come back.
Oh, absolutely. So I think this episode should be titled something like, the making of The Simpsons, or the origin of The Simpsons origin, or something like that.
I hope you had a really fun time listening to this, because God knows I had a fun time recording it. If you also have a weird friend in his early 30s that likes podcasts, let him know about this show. Honestly, leave a review on iTunes. Spread it around as much as you can. Word of mouth is literally the only way we can grow this. So it would help us out immensely. Even just one passing mention to one friend that you think would like it, it will do wonders for us.
Hell yeah, and hop on our Facebook page. The group is excellent. I love the support we already have garnered from people on there.
It is a good time.
It's cool, man.
Nobody's called me nerdy Jew butt.
No, not in front of you. Not to your front.
Is there a secret group?
There might be a secret group.
It's Holdenators Ho.
For just bruisers.
Judy Jew butt.
And catch me on Holdenators Ho at Twitch. You can see my ass get kicked in the Dark Souls DLC most recently.
Still working through that.
Yeah. Well, I just dropped the Dark Souls 3 DLC. Just dropped 2 days ago as of the time of this recording.
And you can follow me on Twitter at BestJakeYoung, and I contribute stuff to dorkly.com, so check us out over there.
Awesome. Have a good one, guys.
For more shows like the one you just listened to, go to cavecomedyradio.com.